The Carolina Panthers are a bad football team. Let's talk about it. Folks, if you are here, please hit that subscribe button. I'm not even going to spend that much time telling you about hitting the subscribe button because we have to talk about the beatdown in New Orleans in week 1 in the Caesars Superdome. I'm not even going to get into stat lines just yet. That's going to come a little bit later as we get into the breakdown. And I don't even know how much time I'm going to spend on it, but we have to start at square one. I'm wearing a Panthers training camp shirt that we got last year for this episode because here we are, the second year in a row where we go through training camp. Expectations nowhere near as high this year as they were last year. It's completely different. And we knew that. We level set with ourselves, at least I did, coming into this year and said, okay, we're going to take a step back. We know this team is working on improving. I kept saying expectations should be 5-6 wins, and I still think that's the case. But after watching today, maybe expectations should be win a game. Win one football game, folks. Panthers, I think, up to one point, they posted on the broadcast, had not scored a touchdown in 9 quarters of football, and I think it was like the longest active streak since the Bengals in the early 2000s. Something absurd. Oh my gosh, dude. I don't know what to say because, number one, we got to talk about Bryce Young, and I have been the biggest supporter of Bryce Young ever since he was drafted. I said I'm excited for Bryce. I think Bryce is going to develop into a fantastic quarterback, an NFL caliber quarterback. We keep hearing about how Bryce is going to be, like how good he's going to be, how he's going to, turn the corner. Folks, we are 17 games into this experiment. We are in year 2 of this experiment, and I feel like we are back at square one. This is not the opportunity to sit back and compare him to other quarterbacks. This is the opportunity for us to compare Bryce Young today from a year ago. And I don't know if I saw a difference. I honestly might have seen a worse performance. And here's the thing with our fan base. Because I see it and I follow it, and it's as bad as the presidential race right now. You're either Republican or you're Democrat, and you side to either one of those views. It's the same way in Panthers world. You're either Team Bryce, I love Bryce Young, right? That's where people point to, or your team, he's a bust. But I think we got to come together, folks, like right in the middle. We got to have an intervention amongst the fan base to acknowledge if you lean team bust, sure, you're probably more right than most of us right now, or you're probably sitting back with your feet up saying, look, I told you. But if you're team Bryce and you think that, hey, this guy's going to pan out, he is going to be a good quarterback, I got to tell you, the eye test is telling me a lot right now. It's telling me a lot with an NFL quarterback in a new system with a rebuilt offensive line, with an offense that's playing to his strengths that cannot make NFL caliber plays. Like, we're not even asking for a lot, folks. We're asking for basic football. Just some plain basic football. Get the ball out, get some completions. We expect there to be learning curves, but we're in year 2. Year 2 of the Bryce Young experiment. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I can tell you, I know I came into the season and I was leaning on the side of it's not make or break because I know Zach Wilson had 3 years. Mac Jones had 3 years. As far as like quarterbacks that were high up there, got shipped out. Justin Fields had more than enough time. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks have an opportunity, and then they get moved on. And, yeah, it'll be year 2 for Bryce Young, but in reality, what we saw out there today was so bad, man. And you can go back if you want, and you can look at the box scores, sure. I mean, honestly, I don't know what you would write home about with how bad it was. Bryce Young scored his first rushing touchdown of his career. Congratulations. In garbage time. This team was bad. They got steamrolled from the start. And I know it's going to sound like a Bryce Young hate compilation. It's not meant to be, because the whole team was absolutely terrible. This was a team that, sure, we know it's going to take some time. There were some comments in the postgame with Dave Canales, and I understand from his perspective, Mr. Positive, all of that said, like where he has to sit. And he has not been promising us anything. Dan Morgan has not been promising us anything this year. But I don't like to hear that this is going to take time, because that worries me. Like, we saw how much roster turnover we had from last year to this year. Who knows what's going to happen between now and next year in the offseason, how different this is going to look. It's not good, man. And you saw the busted coverage right there on the opening drive. I don't know if it was Horn, if he thought he'd have help over the top. These were hard-hitting questions after they were asked in the post game. Got to go back and watch the film. We're at that point now, like in the preseason, you're open to kind of telling everybody, hey, yeah, this is what we saw. Now it's like, oh, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. These are our starters. Let's go back and watch the film. Go back and watch the film. Go back and watch the film. And that's what coaches have to do, because you do have to watch the film. You do have to know the play call. Those things matter to truly evaluate the situation. But it was bad, man. And you want to talk about Bryce Young? Bryce Young sounded absolutely defeated in his post-game presser. And folks, I'm not going to fully bash Bryce this whole time. I am going to talk about a little bit of positives, or at least from what I see from him, and maybe he can turn the corner, but it's not good, man. You saw him continue to miss receivers. It's the very first play that he throws the ball, it's an interception. I saw Scott Fowler tweet out, hey, the second half is at least a little bit better for Bryce. It was his second pass that was intercepted, not his first. And that was the kind of day it was. Like, he got aggressive. I think he admitted to it. He owned up. I'm past it. Like, it's 17 games in, and you do not look better than what you were last year. We've got a 17-game sample size. And anyone, he is the golden boy, the chosen one, you whatever you want to label him and how he got here. We've got to just dude, you got to look around the league, man. And for me last year, when I started this and I watched, I was all like Panthers, Panthers, Panthers. I look around the league at other quarterback play, competent quarterback play. And yeah, it's night and day what this guy's done. Bryce Young has yet to win an NFL game on the road. He has not won an NFL game. I know playing in New Orleans, they're your division rival. It's tough. It's tough to play there. You got to figure it out at some point. I just don't know, man. It was rough. I don't know I guess I could pull up the final stat lines. We're going to take a little look at some of the stats here in just a second. But overall, I don't know where you go. I think you hope that whatever happened here was a fluke. We have coaches, media members, everyone praising Bryce that eventually he's going to figure it out. I don't know when that eventually is going to happen. I'd love to be proven wrong and say, oh, yeah, next week he comes out or whatever week this season and starts to string it together. But that's the thing. You can't have just one-off performances against the Green Bay Packers, and that's it. That is what we've got to measure him. It's frustrating. So let's see here. The 47-10 loss, and I don't know. First half, we'll talk about the first half stats in a second, because Bryce, I mean, he really, honestly, from the first quarter on, you technically could say we were padding stats. I know not really, but it was 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. 30-3 at halftime, And yeah, from then on, 47-10 to close it out. But Bryce was 13 of 30, 161 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked 4 times. I talked about New Orleans and pressure. It's bad, folks. It's terrible. Andy Dalton did get in a little bit later in the game. Canales was asked about that after. Thought he wanted to try to give the offense an opportunity to kind of gel a little bit more. Maybe things would click. That was my thing. I'm like, why at this late in the game when it was, 37-10, do you have the starters out there? And even when they went up by even more, why are you trotting these guys out there? I mean, seriously, it's a blowout game. Here's what I tweeted too. If you watched me as I tweeted this out when we went through this, I did this live. I was like, we really decided not to play our starters in the preseason so that we could play them in garbage time, which is might as well be close to the preseason in a regular season game. So, yeah, we're not going to play meaningless time in the preseason, but we're going to play meaningless time in a regular season game. And at that point is when we're going to decide that, oh, yeah, maybe now we should try to get ready and look like a football team. And I know I'm hitting hard on Bryce Young. It was the entire team. It was terrible. 58 total rushing yards. Miles Sanders, 5 for 22. Chuba Hubbard did not look great, 6 for 14. Bryce had 4 for 12, and again, the only touchdown of the day. Mike Boone had 4 for 7. Mingo had 1 carry for 3. Oh my gosh, can we talk about some of the fumbles too? Jonathan Mingo fumbled, which one that he lost, fumbled later in the game. And the one that he lost early on was just a regular hit. I know I'm going to town on Bryce Young, but Jonathan Mingo, second year as well, and you fumbled the ball twice. Now, I know the second one, your foot was out of bounds. His foot was out of bounds. So it ended up being okay, but it was down towards the goal line in garbage time again. You just cannot have that. The defense was atrocious. They made Taysom Hill look like RB1, RB2. I don't even know what RB you want to chart him up. They made Taysom Hill look like he was a stud running back, averaging 7 yards per carry. Derek Carr carved us up. He had no pressure. He could have gotten a picnic blanket, had a picnic back there, and just relaxed. 19 to 23, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was only sacked 1 time. Here I am coming into the game, and shout out to Callie Cajun, who has the Saints podcast that I go on to talk Panthers. And I said coming into this game, or after the game, I said, this is going to be a long year for the Panthers pass rush because we thought the New Orleans Saints were going to be a manageable game where we could get pressure because of how bad the offensive line play has been for New Orleans in the preseason. And you only manufacture 1 sack and have Carr back there just chilling. It's not good. Alvin Kamara looked great. 15 carries, 83 yards, 1 touchdown. Jamal Williams, 11 for 38, 1 touchdown. Taysom Hill had 5 for 35, like I said, 7 yards per carry. Receiving-wise, Rashid Shaheed, Foster Moreau, Alvin Kamara, I mean, they got the ball around. They spread it around. On the Panther side, Adam Thielen had 3 for 49, and then Adam Thielen's locker room post-game, because he didn't talk to the media as far as what Dave Canales and Bryce Young did. But in that, Adam Thielen said, this is not last year's team. I'm like, yeah, well, you better think about that. You better think about that for a second. Here's the thing. Fans are going to compare this team to last year's team until we see 2 wins. 2 wins in a row. I don't know when that's going to happen, to be honest, because I think, pushing all this aside, the Saints may actually be a very good football team. Not may. They look like they could be a good football team this year. So I think we have to remember that. That's a playoff level football team, at least through week one. And week one's the week right now where you overreact for every situation, but at the same time, they played one heck of a game. Yeah, so Adam Thielen, 3 for 49. Mingo had 2 for 40. Xavier Legette did get involved a little bit, which was nice to see, 4 for 35. Did come out with an injury, but then came back. Deontay Johnson, 2 for 19. David Moore, 1 for 14. And Jatavian Sanders, 1 for 4. Jordan Matthews had 1 target, didn't get a catch, and Miles Sanders had 2 targets. Talked about the fumbles. Defensive side of the ball, Shaq Thompson had 10 total tackles. He was your leading tackler, 2 for loss. A'Shaun Robinson with 9. Xavier Woods, 8. Mike Jackson might have been the lone bright side to the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the tackling was terrible, like across the board on our defense. It was absolutely garbage in the effort. But Mike Jackson at cornerback, starting opposite of J.C. Horn, did look the part. Iku Leoto also had 3 tackles for loss, and then J.C. Horn had 1. Who had the 1 sack? Iku Leoto. So he had the 1 sack and then 3 tackles for loss. We did not force a turnover. Can't expect anything good to happen there. Raheem Blackshear had 8 returns, kickoff returns, 204 yards, 31 yards was his long, and then Xavier Legette had the 1. It's rough, man. I was glad to at least see Xavier back there because, I did want to see him get a few touches and get involved that way at least. Eddie Pinheiro, 1 for 1, 43-yard field goal, and the 1 extra point. Johnny Hecker, special teams, man, is still bad. Special teams play is just terrible right now. I don't know if Johnny's punt got muffed or hacked. I don't know what happened, but either way, the play was terrible, folks. So we talked a lot about the stat lines on both sides of the ball. For the Carolina Panthers, field position was another important piece to this equation. New Orleans average starting field position was their own 44. The Carolina Panthers average was their own 30, a 14-yard discrepancy. And when we look over here, let's see, let's look at the drives. So the Panthers had 13 drives. It was an interception, which we know, first drive, first play, a 5-play drive that ended in a punt, 6-play drive that ended in a punt, a 2-play drive that ended in a fumble, a 3-and-out with a punt, and then an 8-play drive for 40 yards with a field goal. They gained 15 yards, 17 yards, 7, -5, and then 40. And that was your first half summary. In the second half, they had a 3-and-out. A 3-play drive that ended with the interception. So there you go. The next, they followed it up with the 8-play, 60-yard drive and a touchdown in garbage time, because who cares at that point. Then a 3-and-out, an 8-play drive with the turnover on downs, a 4-play drive with the turnover on downs, a 3-and-out, and then the 2, there was the muff punt at the end. So that was it. On the other side, Saints lit it up. They did not punt the ball until the fourth quarter. So they had a touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. Did not punt until the fourth quarter. That's bad, folks. That is so bad. I guess we could talk about, we're deep into this now, but offensively, we had Adam Thielen, Ike Ekwonu, Damian Lewis. Damian Lewis also battled injury, became in and out. Same thing for Legette. Corbett, Hunt, Moton, Sanders, Matthews, Deontay Johnson, Young, Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Brown, Tuttle, Robinson, Clowney, Thompson, Jewell, Hill, Horn, Jackson, Fuller, Woods. Your inactives were Jamie Robinson, Bartholomew, Rame, Kingston, Tommy Trimble. We know Ian Thomas went on IR. Swinson, who's the tight end that they recently signed, and LeBrian Ray. Yeah, not great. Where are let's get our first half stats here, and then we might call this a day because there's just not too much to talk about. Overall, first half summary, Panthers had 5 first downs to the New Orleans 12. They were 1 for 4. The Panthers were on third down. They ran 24 offensive plays with 41 net rushing yards, 33 net passing yards when you take into account the sacks. It was actually about 50 yards passing in the first half. It wasn't great. Wasn't great by any means. Closing it. Let's see. 1 second here. I was trying to get our final stat lines here. Ended out with, let's see, we were 1 for 10 on third downs for the game. Wonderful. Total net yards, 193 to 379. Net rushing, like we got 58. Net passing, when you take away the sacks, was 136, 161 through the air for Bryce. We looked at the kickoffs, punts, field goals, penalties, 6 for 80. They had 10 for 95. I will admit some of those penalties were a little frustrating. The one late hit for Shake Thompson. There was another one that was called really late. I think that was the pass interference call. It was called well after the play, though. Let's look at explosive plays because, yeah, there were quite a few explosive plays against the Panthers. Here we go. The 10 longest plays for the Saints. So we know the 59-yarder. They had a 22-yarder, an 18-yarder, 17. So plays of 15 or more yards, they had had 9. 9 plays of 15 or more yards. The Panthers had 4 plays of 15 or more yards. Quite a discrepancy. Largest lead was 30 in the first half, then 37. I mean, that's so bad, folks. It's so bad. Another fourth quarter without the Panthers leading. Time rolls on, as it has been, and they continue to be terrible. Where do the Panthers go from here? Where should they go? I don't think Canales is going anywhere. Canales is here to stay. Bryce Young is here to stay for another year. Do you, if you are Dave Canales, make a decision to try to put Andy Dalton out there? If you want to win football games and you're the head coach of this team and you've seen 1 year of Bryce, you have seen him through camp, you've seen him now in one regular season game, do you make a decision to put in Andy Dalton? And again, I'll give Bryce some slight benefit of the doubt. If that's even possible at this point, I'll give him a slight edge and say maybe New Orleans was much better than anyone thought they would be. Like even including myself. Like maybe we'll push it to that tier. But you cannot make the mistakes like if I look at Bryce Young as the number 1 overall quarterback, and that's what we're always going to look at him as because that's what he was, you expect more out of your quarterback. And I know there was a tweet out there, Panthers analyst, which is awesome follow, that compared the stat line of Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. Caleb Williams had a terrible day, but the Bears still won. And his stat line wasn't great, but they had a pick 6 return for a touchdown. I think a punt return turned for a touchdown. And defense played good. This was an all-around butt whooping. Like, this is much more than Bryce Young playing bad. This is the defense, special teams, offense across the board. There was a lot of talk about a successful rushing attack and who this team is going to be. Then it wasn't there. And you look back over now at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and how they're doing and faring without Dave Canales, they look pretty good today. Got a pretty easy win over the Commanders. Now, no Commanders playing the rookies, so guess take that with what you will. But I don't know, man. I honestly don't know what I would do in this situation either. The Panthers are the laughingstock. They will continue to be the laughingstock of the NFL until they can prove it, man. Until the Carolina Panthers can go out here and play competitive football and not get blown out the way that they just did, people are going to laugh. And the media and pundits and whoever else are going to say the same thing. And as a fan, a content creator that's here to support the team and always will be, I'm going to do my best to keep you motivated. But there's not much good that you can say coming out of this. And I think Dave Canales is going to have to look in the mirror and decide, does he want to continue to roll with Bryce? And I think maybe he will for a few more games, or get into this thing and say, all right, he is not executing this offense the way that I would anticipate from a competent NFL quarterback. Maybe it's time to change it up, man. I mean, if you're going to truly preach this, and if you're given the keys to do whatever you want to do, you have to make a decision that, hey, I want to win some football games. And I don't care how we win the football games. I don't care who's the quarterback. Like, you can't just handhold him. You can't coddle Bryce Young and hold him the way that we are right now. You've got to look in the mirror and say, all right, it's time to change things up, and then reevaluate at the end of the year. And I hope, for the sake of this thing, that I'm just wrong and he does come out and figures it out. But it's hard to imagine him figuring out something when it's this far along. So anyways, folks, that is going to do it for today's episode. We'll have a lot more content coming out this week. And until next time, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.